Welcome to Doing It My Way by Beata Matras, a podcast about project and product management, communication, brand, and IT. All these topics will definitely improve and have a positive impact on your career. So join me today, subscribe, and expect a new episode every week. Thank you. Welcome to Doing It My Way by Beata Matras, the show where we dive into various aspects of project management and product management, of course. And today we have a special guest, Maggie Lighezzolo, Senior Product Manager in global London-based FinTech. Okay, she's passionate about digital product, loves working with multidisciplinary teams across product development and content production, and also solving complex problems to meet user needs. And personally, she is one of the people that made a huge impact on my professional career and introduced me into the product world. And I would like to say, like, Maggie was and still is like Red Bull to me. She gave me wings. So today we'll be exploring the fundamentals of product management together. Welcome to the show, Maggie. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Beata. What an introduction. I feel like you've put me on a pedestal now. But no, very excited. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. Like, I have to highlight it because you made like huge impact on my professional career. So thank you for that. And today I wanted like to focus on your experience and your skill set, because I think that can be valuable for aspiring and also like aspiring product managers and product managers or project managers who want to like maybe develop their career or just get insights from experienced product manager, senior product manager. So Maggie, maybe we'll start from the first question. And that question is, what inspired you to start to develop a career in product management? How did it started?
Product wasn't really a professional kind of course, or I guess well-established career path when I started. So I started my career for a digital agency. It actually started in the project space, and it was mainly working with clients, and we'd take on board briefs, and then we'd take those briefs to what we called the production floor, if you will. So our designers and engineers, and they would come up with basically the assets for the particular marketing campaign or website, the app, whatever the client had briefed in. So that was kind of how my career in digital started. And then I spent close to 5 years at that agency. And as the company grew, we got more robust clients. We started taking on board a lot of national government contracts. I think things like Agile and Scrum started coming into the digital world. Phrases like digital transformation really started coming about, and how these agencies could help, not just sort of retail and FMCG kind of style companies, but also, nationwide government council, education type materials. And it's sort of that partnership with those clients where it was less of a brief and more about, we have this problem, can we partner with you in a digital sense, and can we sort of figure that out? So I think that was the introduction of what is now, referred to as product, and putting user needs first, looking at a problem space and how we can interrogate that. So I'd say that would be the beginning for me. And I think from there, it grew into more of an interest I sort of just progressed through the company. I moved from agency to client side. So that means I took up a role in digital product within a company. So working for a company website rather than for different clients. And it was the same kind of thing. It was sort of like, all right, you now own this space. How do you want to optimize it? How do you want to engage with your users? Find out, what their problems are, what their needs are, and then kind of build up a body of work from there. So yeah, I'd say it was quite a soft entry into product. And it was just sort of through different experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have that I've become more and more interested. And then obviously I've spent the last 4 years at IG, as you established, is a global fintech. And even there, that role's, it's changed its shape in that time as well. So I started as what would have been a product owner, and am now a senior product manager. And like that's changed in itself, the way that the organization looks at product and its role within that. So I think, product is still is quite fluid. And so I think, depending on where you start, what you're looking to do, it's going to look very different in different companies. But yeah, that's probably how I started getting an interest.
Okay, and to follow up on that, was there like any defining moment or like role company that significantly shaped your approach to product management or your move from project to product?
Probably a bit of both. So the move from project to product, and this may be a bit of a contentious answer, but for me was very stemmed by the fact that I don't really love interacting with people. I much rather.
That's surprising.
I know, for a product person to say, but I think let me categorize. So I love, and I think you added this in my intro. I love collaboration. I love cross-functional teams. I love complex problems, which means you work with a multitude of people within a team to kind of come up with the best solutions and attack the right problems. But what I didn't love when I first started my career, so yeah, it was very much in the kind of account management, project management space. I didn't like kind of just being a kind of go-between for a client with money who wanted a certain output, and then I was the one who would sort of manage the relationship, manage the accounts, manage the brief, and I'd take that without question, without interrogation, pass it on to the production floor. And I think I didn't like working in that way. I actually much rather working with what the agency called the production floor, which is what I said, kind of our engineers, our designers, our marketeers, our copywriters, etc. That to me was always where the hub of energy was, where the excitement of doing the work was. It wasn't, so much in these client-facing relationships. So that for me was an easy push to move out of sort of the project admin, I guess maybe the more bureaucratic style of work, into product, where it felt more real, it felt more gritty. You kind of got to, get into the data, the problems, work with the team, prototype things. So that would probably be the push from project to product, or what would become product. But in terms of sort of a client or an experience, again, just going back to the agency, just because I spent the better part of five years there. One of the biggest clients that we took on was the Australian Department of Health, and it was a mental health. Basically, mental health was a big focus, and we wanted to look at building basically a gateway of resources. They had a lot of packs and paperwork and things that they would send out to schools and universities, but obviously kind of in this world of digital transformation, being more accessible, being more available, they wanted to move that digitally. And I think for me, that was, again, just a real turning point in how you could work with someone. So it wasn't so much get a brief and deliver. It was, it was all centered around these co-design workshops. So you were constantly working with, lived experience of mental health, community members. We were working with the providers who were providing some of these resources, and it was just a really cool way to sort of delve into the problems, which again sort of sparked my interest in making it a user-centric career.
Okay, so it sounds like, to sum up your movement from the project to product management world, it was mostly about being closer to solving the problems rather than delivering the solution.
Yes, I guess in layman terms, yes. I was more interested in how we could focus on a problem area to deliver the right opportunity or the right solution, rather than being told this is the solution we're going to build. Here's your paycheck, here's the brief, go and make it happen.
So I think that this is one of the kind of product and product management definitions, yeah, to actually create a value, create a solution that is usable, yeah, viable, feasible, and
The full risks,
valuable, yeah, and valuable. Um, and yeah, how do you define product management and product? Maybe we can start from the fundamentals.
The fundamentals. How would I define it? Again, I think this question is always so interesting, because I think product management, what your career path looks like, what your role looks like, what your responsibilities are, this is going to vary greatly from company to company. Even as I sort of said earlier, in this recording, like even my role when I was hired, it was as a product owner, so it was very much kind of delivery focused. It was a well-established backlog. It was basically just sort of getting the sprint plans together, being responsible for the deliverables. And then as IG has matured its product function over sort of 4+ years, it's really reshaped that role. So we've actually now gotten rid of the PO function. There was a period where we tried product managers and what they called agile business analysts, which was like this hybrid, but again, that didn't work. So we've now moved into a fully fledged, product management function, where there's sort of different tiers of seniority. And I'm sure as we, keep going, 5 years from now, it could look very different again. And I'm sure, your career path at different organizations, what your role title is, will look very, very different. So I think coming back to like what it means to me and what I think the foundations are, I think it really is about being, you are the linchpin. So, quite often a product manager won't have a line report or a dedicated team, right? So you quite often don't have a lot of authority as such. It's all about the influence that you can create, the rapport that you can build. So you are that linchpin between understanding the customer problems and needs. Where does the business want to take, things commercially? What is our, tech modernization strategy? How do we pull all of that together? And it's really about being transparent, being communicative, having those relationships, conducting that research, and bringing all of that together to set a vision that everyone can get behind, and then developing a strategic plan that can follow that in ideally a very kind of iterative, fluid way. So, again, I think we've spoken before about agile, and how at the beginning of, I think when products started coming into digital agencies, that's kind of what defined it. It was like, oh, you work in agile, or you work in sprints. And I think it's just become so much more than that. So I think, my foundations would be, you need to have a great personal brand. You need to have good rapport, be respected. You need to be influential. So you need to really build your network. You need to use your common sense. You can't do everything for everyone. Saying no is a really great asset of a product manager. If you say yes to everything, you're probably not doing anything great. You're just trying to appease far too many people. Communication and transparency, that really is key. It comes back to being that linchpin around just ensuring, you take everyone on the journey. And I know this phrase gets used a lot, but it really is so important. Your job is so much easier if everybody is on the same page from the beginning, and you're not surprising people, you're not leaving people out. Again, depending on the organization, if you can remove all of the politics and the bureaucracy and just, work with people at face value, is so much easier. But yeah, they would probably be my foundational tips.
So you just defined the role of product manager and like mentioned some key skills and qualities that you believe are essential for a successful product manager. But if we can like come back and make a step back to defining the role of product manager, who is this person? You said like a linchpin between the technology, the business, the UX. Can you elaborate on that? What does it mean?
A linchpin, or I guess a kind of central ground, the kind of hub, right? So I think as a product manager, you can't drive any one person's or one function's perspective or ask. You kind of have to be considerate from all angles, and obviously the core three being your users, the commercial value of the business, and then the tech that you build everything on. So those three will have very different, quite often, wants and needs. It's not uncommon for product to kind of heavily sit in the middle of what's the best thing for the user, but how do we do that in a commercially viable way? How do we do that in a way that sustains any kind of tech modernization plan? We're not doing it in kind of a hacky version, but at the same time we want to be quick, we want to be iterative, we want to be able to show from POC to full build. So that would be my explanation. It's kind of, you are the cortex, if you will. I think it's a very common diagram that people use, of where you've got the three circles of kind of business, technology, and your customer, and then product sort of sits in the middle of that, because you're pulling from all angles. You are doing the research, you're kind of developing the relationships within the business, you're doing customer understanding, journey mapping. So you're basically trying to pull every data facet you can to create a viable product vision, and then from there you can develop your strategic plan as to what that might look like. What is your roadmap, whether you want to be just looking at outcomes initially, or whether you have some initial features that you can dive into straight off the bat. That's what I mean by linchpin.
So it sounds like a kind of bridge between those three, and being like in the middle of everything, of all these like three areas or three important parts of product development. Of product development. But I wanted to like ask, what's the difference between like this product function and actually the project function? Because you said before, like you got the brief, as a project manager, and you were responsible for delivering what the customer wanted, what he like put into this brief. And with product management, it was like, I have a problem and I need to figure out, with all the help from the business, the technology, from users, a solution, a kind of way to tackle this problem. And I'm wondering where like the core differences between project and product managers are. How would you define that?
I think first up, so I think we've kind of centered a lot on problem. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a problem. I think problem is often it's an easier one to go after than, say, you just partner with an entity that has an outcome they're looking at, or a specific metric that they're looking at. So that's probably the grounds in which product stands. Either you're partnering with someone who already understands what their user gap or their need, their kind of problem space is, or you're partnering with someone who has a goal or an outcome or a key metric that they really want to go after, but they're not yet certain, what is the best way to do that. But it doesn't have to be intrinsically linked to a problem. But so that would be my kind of product space, and sort of all the things that I've talked about being really research heavy, data centric, pulling people together. You are the partner across the business to make sure that there's transparent communication, that there is a shared vision, that everyone's on board with that there's a strategic plan that comes with that you have goals and targets that you want to hit, that you can be iterative. So all of that kind of feeds into product. Project for me, and again, this is just kind of my experience or how I've seen it differentiated in kind of large corporate organizations, is project tends to be more it's more governed, it's more admin heavy. So, it's really about if we wanted to make them work side by side, product would have done all of the initial, research. We've kind of done the discovery. We've done, our problem space. We've done our ideation. We kind of know what our plan is of things that, maybe we want to do, and we might have a roadmap. A roadmap is not a project plan. A roadmap can be quite high level. So as I said, it can still be outcomes and things that you may go after. But let's say that we had a fairly well fledged out feature that we wanted to deliver. Now, it could be a multi-team, highly complex, feature. That to me is where you could palm over to a project manager, because then they can put in the milestones, the timelines. How do we break down this initiative into tasks? Do we have the right capacity in teams? Are we doing our RAG status reports? Am I communicating to stakeholders our progression reports, our risk radar, all of that? So to me, that is project. It's more budget, resource, time management, rather than kind of what is it that we're actually going after, which would be the product space. And I think I'm just going to go off on a slight tangent here, but it's just only because you and I went to that networking piece in London around the quote from the ex-Meta PM around, the best product managers make themselves obsolete. And I think that is seen very clearly when we look at like product and project, right? So product is all about finding where's your value, right? Like what's the next best thing that we can be doing. But if you've done that with a team and you kind of have a fairly solid idea of like, these are the next outcomes, this is the North Star metric, like whatever it is that is, all of that can be packaged up and taken into a delivery team, a delivery function. A project manager could take that then and go, okay, what's our plan? What are our milestones, our targets? How much resource do we need? What's the capacity? What are our timelines? What budget do we have? All of that. And, that product manager can move on to something else. I think where they usually differ the most is that, and again, there's loads of debate and, insight. You only have to go on LinkedIn to read 45 articles around how all of this can work together. But I think where there's most debate is, again, around larger companies. It's like, does project and product really have a place together? Like if you want to be a truly product-led organization, a truly user-centric organization, theoretically, you shouldn't have the need for project, right? Because you've got independent squads who are focused on very specific areas that they can then develop, strategic visions for, roadmaps for, deliver autonomously, independently. Where we tend to bring in project is because there's a lot of legacy, there's a lot of complication, there's a lot of cross-team dependency, and that's where project comes in to kind of pull everything together. Because let's face it, no product person wants to be managing 12 different tech teams to deliver something that there may only be, this big as part of their deliverable. So I think that's still something that I'd like to see, fleshed out, particularly at, where we are at IG. I think, with some upcoming org changes, there's a lot of, early discussion around how do these two functions work together. But, particularly from other large scale corporate global organizations, how do these two functions play a part? So yeah, this would be my understanding. But as I've kind of reiterated, like I think organization to organization, product will look so different.
I agree with that. It looks like differently in different organizations. But coming back for a while to this project and product management roles, we can be great on discovery. We can be great with, defining the user needs or looking for, like, collaborating with tech teams on shaping the solution. But without proper delivery skills, like we have a problem, we know the solution, we are going to deliver that. I mean, if we will not do something, we will not get something done, we will not bring the value to the client or to the user. So a product manager in its like core has to have this piece of a good project manager. And I'm not talking about budgeting or making some status reports or something like that. I'm talking about the skills needed to deliver something valuable to a user.
I'm going to disagree, because I don't think, and again, it depends on the maturity of your team and the way that your organization has sliced up the roles. But if we take the role of a product owner or a scrum master, now at IG those roles do not exist. That doesn't mean that those responsibilities don't exist. Now in my team, we are quite mature. We are quite well established in our ways of working. And so the role of kind of product owner or scrum master, where you'd be looking at, okay, what's in the backlog? What do we do? What's our sprint capacity? What's our delivery plan? That doesn't necessarily have to be the product manager. Quite often the tech lead will take on that role, or also any other nominated engineer in the team who may also have this training. So what the product manager is primarily responsible for is the roadmap. And that is, as I said, it can be features if that's the way that your team work, or it could be, outcomes if in 3 months time you aren't quite sure what you're going to build, but the outcome that you want to go after. So in my roadmap, if I have X features, the actual delivery plan, I'm not in the detail of. I don't really care whether it's, delivered in sprint 8 or sprint 10, because that's going to depend on the team planning, often led by the tech lead, down to what is the capacity, what is the other work, have they been interrupted with things like maintenance or incidents, etc. And it's about having that trust and that relationship. So again, that kind of golden triangle of tech, product, and UX. But I don't see the need to ever kind of lay out, everything needs to be live by the 18th of January, because that's going to be an arbitrary deadline, right? Like no one but me is going to push that. Whereas I would rather take the guys off them and go, okay, here are the requirements. We sit, we discuss them, we break this down into the amount of stories, we know our capacity, we then map that out into sprints. Sprints then become our timeline. I could care less about, targeting a percentage-wise delivery plan. So I think for me, that's where they differ.
Okay, so where do you think lies this line on I'm a product manager, are responsible for this or this? I mean, what are these core things that we as product managers should be responsible for or are responsible for? And you can tell it on a on an example, how does it work in your team? What are your core responsibilities? Because that's interesting.
Right. In my team, and again, I'm not sure if I can sort of answer, strictly for product versus project, because I think, even within IG as an organization, we're not sure. You talk to some people and they're like, why do we need project? If we want to be a truly product user-centric organization, you shouldn't need, this function at all. But you talk to others and you go, yeah, but we're a highly regulated industry, and therefore there's certain governance that will always be needed. And again, that's what a kind of project function would provide. So I think it really depends on the scale and complexity of the work. So kind of, as I've said, to me, project is better when it's much larger, much more complex, much more all-encompassing across an enterprise, rather than if it's a team or a handful of teams that are wanting to build something. So I would say in my particular circumstance, so within IG, I am responsible for the market analysis and research tooling that we offer in our platform. So our clients, they've selected a particular market that they might be interested in trading. We provide a research hub, and then they go on and either place a deal or not deal, depending on how the insights have led them to behave. But I think for me, therefore, fundamentally, the core things are understanding the user. So we do a lot around what's in platform at the moment. Are people happy with that? Are they using the tools that we are providing them? If they're not using them, why are they not using them? What do our competitors do? What are the gaps that we might need to plug? Who are the third parties that we could get more value from? So my team spend a lot of time looking at opportunity analysis. And then when it comes to delivery, again, this kind of comes back to the roadmap. We have a sort of set of key metrics. We know which ones we want to go after, and we know which kind of feature ideas are going to hit that best. And so that's when the team will start working through their refinement sessions. We'll break it down, and then we'll work out, okay, how many sprints is this going to take?
So I'm just trying to catch the kind of core value of product manager in an organization. When you said about getting to know your customer or getting to know your users, I totally understand that. But on the other hand, I think so what's from understanding the users and
it sounds to me like you're really driving to kind of put a very clear line between project and product and what the real key value there is. And for me, product, it comes back to, as a product manager, you are responsible for setting the vision and strategy of the products or the journey that you own. That is fundamentally your responsibility. And to do that, you do it through everything that we've previously discussed. So, you're bringing all parties to the table. You are that network within the company, that linchpin of communication. You're doing the research. You're, in some companies, product is user facing. In companies like IG, we have teams like user research and customer insights that do that for us. But that is the key objective of a product manager. You are there to deliver products that are usable, that are valuable, but they fit into whatever vision or strategy you have created for your area. Project doesn't do that. Project is output. Project is deliverables. It's all defined work, and you are managing the cadence of that. As I've said, you are managing, are we hitting the milestones? Are we on target? Are we on budget? Etc. It has nothing to do with what's the outcome we're going after, what's the vision that we have, what's the strategy of this product area. It is purely execution focused. There are definitely skills there that feed into how you behave as a product manager, but product is so versatile. Think about the amount of designers, engineers, QAs, commercial people who come into product. They don't have project manager backgrounds. They may not even have delivery backgrounds. It's all about how you think. You need to be able to be analytical. You need to be able to read and interpret data and research. You need to be communicative. Okay. You need to have, again, I think it just comes back to you need to have a good personal brand, because you need to be able to pull everything together, digest that, and then communicate that in a way that gets people on board. You are there to get people excited. You are there to sell a vision. You're there to influence. So kind of having a certain, decorum around, product can be very demanding, right? People want a lot of things. And again, depending on the company you're in, product can be painted in many shades. I've seen examples where product is very refined. You look at your kind of fang mang companies like Google, Netflix, etc. You could be product manager of literally like the like button or the, what to play next button or something. And then you move right down the scale to startup, and you might have a position as product director or head of product, but you're still the one doing the Jira sprints with your engineers because that's part of it. And that's just, the way that the organization is set up. So I think the skills greatly differ because the role greatly differs. But if we wanted to take it back to foundations, product manager, primarily responsible for vision and strategy. And then how can we leverage, like for those who have come from a project background, how can we leverage that? I agree with you. There is definitely elements of delivery or ways of working, communication even, that you can bring in from a project background. I remember when I first started at IG, the team that I came into, who's not the team that I work with now, but they needed a lot of tidy up. They had made all kinds of promises to stakeholders. There was no transparency. There were no clear sprint timelines. So again, sort of from a project background, it was very easy for me to come in and set up communication templates, meeting structures, put sprint plans together, work with them on, what does a team contract look like? What is our capacity like? Things like that. So I think you can take elements of project management to have a better way of working in your team, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they are hard requirements for being a good product manager.
And I think right now we are moving to that part where it would be good to discuss the key skills and qualities and like sum up what are the essential key skills and qualities for successful product manager. And I know you said about it like a few times already, but let's like make a list, I would say, so the listeners can understand what maybe they could work on or what they are missing and what they can improve.
So key things. My biggest one is, and will always be, communication. You need to be a good communicator. And to do that, it means you need to have transparency and you need to have the right network, because you need to make sure that you are including the right people, updating the right people. Communication, definitely. Second one would be your interpersonal skills. So this is your brand, this is your influence. And kind of as I touched on earlier, like quite often product management is not a position of authority. We don't have engineers who report into us. We are not responsible for P&L or process enhancements, things like that. So it is about your influence. How do you gather people together? How do you sell an idea? How do you create that personal brand that gets people to buy in, get excited? Why do you want your engineers to build something? What do you want your designer to look at? Why should the data teams look at this thing for you? So I think interpersonal skills are really important because it's about that influence and brand. And then finally, I think it's common sense. Like a lot of product is problem solving. And if you exercise common sense, and this can be anything from, hard skills like what's your research and analysis like, right through to your soft skills like how do you collaborate? How do you use diplomacy? Saying no is also a big thing. But again, a lot just comes down to common sense. Like I don't think you will ever succeed as a product manager if you're interested in being a people pleaser, because all the time you need to bring together the insights and keep analyzing, what is the next best thing? What is the greatest piece of value? And that's never going to align to all people that you're working with. So you need to be able to have those conversations, have that rationale, explain why. So they would probably be my my three biggest ones: communication, interpersonal skills, and common sense.
Okay, we have a great summary. I love it. So if we have that, I would just add one thing from me. I think it's the ability to simplify things. Actually, that's something that is making your, yeah, I mean, we can put it probably into interpersonal skills. So working with all communication, like working with different
Yeah, I
stakeholders,
say
working with different, yeah.
Yeah, let's put it in communication. And yes, you are entirely right, because like it's not just about that. So I talked about transparency and communication. I talked about having the right network, but it's also about, communication looks very different. Like how you communicate with your team is very different to how you're going to communicate with C-suite management. So being able to take complex problems, digest them, and then present them in a way where people, again, they buy into it, they get excited by it, they understand why we want to go after it, but they need to, understand it. One of my favorite quotes from someone senior that I've worked with is basically, if you come to me with a deck or a problem or something you want to pursue, and I don't understand it, that is your fault, not mine. Meaning that you've come to someone senior who, they are obviously not in the weeds and the details of whatever problem or pitch or whatever it is that you're looking at, and you have not been able to break it down in a way that is concise, digestible, easy to understand what the takeaway, what the benefits are, what the value impact, etc. is. And I think that's always stuck with me, because it's something that I quite like. If you bring something to me and I don't understand it, that's on you, not me.
Okay, Maggie, I think you nailed it. I mean, you explained how simplicity helps to be a great product manager. But let's move right now to the challenging aspects of product management. And you mentioned before the people pleasing. That's one of the demons that can haunt product managers. And also ability to say no. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
I would say they probably go hand in hand, right? And they probably come under the category of prioritization, right? This is always a product manager's biggest challenge, because you have a finite amount of capacity. You have a dedicated team. Maybe you don't have a dedicated team. Maybe you have to share certain skill sets, resources, etc. But you have a finite amount of capacity, and you have, a vast backlog roadmap. You have competing stakeholders, competing user needs, business needs, etc. So I think prioritization is the biggest one, and this kind of couples quite nicely with both of those. So we'll touch on people pleasing first. So I think, as I said, like you're never going to be successful as a product manager if your aim is to people please, because you can't be all things to all people. You cannot deliver everything for every person's need. You've got some stakeholders, I'm sure, who, think they're God's gift to earth, and they've got an idea, and therefore, I'm paid X much, and therefore blah, 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 you should do it. But then when you really interrogate it, you really break it down, you kind of go, besides your kind of title in the company, this idea doesn't really have a lot of merit. And it's that old saying, right? Like there's always an abundance of ideas, but they're not necessarily good ideas. And I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but I know Steve Jobs had lots around this, around how many ideas you need to basically fail before you get the one thing that sells. So people pleasing is not the answer. And it kind of comes back to that sort of interpersonal skills, that communication. You need to have a good enough rapport and be communicative enough that understanding that telling people no is not a bad thing, because as long as you can rationalize it, right? Like if you take opinion and emotion out of it, like that's a very easy conversation to have. And so it's less about, and again, this will entirely depend on the type of personality you are, but for me, it's far less about being liked and much more about being respected. So, you are not always going to agree with your team or agree with your stakeholders. They may not like a certain thing that you've done, but if they understand why you've done it or why we're not doing something, that starts to create respect. That starts to create accountability towards something. It's, building rapport. People will want to work with you more because, it's like, all right, well, I can work with this person and understand like these are the best things to be going after. It's not just a wish list of things that people want. So that would be the people pleasing, which ties in as well to saying no. This was actually when I first interviewed for IG. This was actually one of the biggest points that I brought up in my interview, because the team that I was moving into at the time, the interviewing panel made it abundantly clear that there were a lot of issues in kind of constantly, over promising stakeholders. Basically, there was a lot of, or a lack of, I guess, prioritization, any kind of scrutiny or process around what we're building and why. It had basically become this floodgate of requests that the team was not managing at all at the time. And my biggest sell point was I'm very comfortable in saying no. And again, it's not about, shutting people down. It's not about being arrogant. But again, it just sort of comes back to these communication, these interpersonal, these branding skills. Like the more that you can say no and explain why, you start to build rapport. You're not being seen as a pushover or, just, give that to this team because they'll just fit it in, And I think whenever there's an inability in the product lead to not say no or want to people please, it creates friction in the team. Like there's nothing more disruptive to an engineering team than when you're having them context switch, when you're giving favors to people, when you're saying, oh, but, executive this has now said we need to do this because it's the best thing. No one knows why. It's just because that executive has said that, it's a thing. It causes a lot of disruption and it actually slows work down. You lose momentum, but also you lose team kind of trust and willingness to want to kind of get behind a problem. So that would be my wrap up.
Yeah, so I think I agree with, not saying no, but that you led it to prioritization, because I think the better idea of not saying, of saying no is actually asking about priorities, yeah, or just prioritizing things according to, for example, like stakeholders, user needs, and having like a clear system for that, because then, as you said, we have kind of proof that, oh, this is more valuable than that. And if you don't agree, please explain what's behind it, what I missed maybe. And that's why.
Exactly. And it ties nicely into kind of this thread that you've been weaving of project and product. And again, if you can take those sort of project skills and bring in ways of working to a team. So, this could be prioritization models. This could be stakeholder communication templates. It could be ways of working, capacity models, delivery plans, like whatever it is. All of that creates robustness for a team.
I agree that it's valuable to implement some processes that actually make your work, more effective. More effective, I would say. Not even like efficient, but efficient in case of if we are talking about being efficient because we want to do more valuable things and less distractions. Yeah, that's about what it comes with efficiency. We don't want to like get more like work to the backlog. We just want to reduce and make a clear focus for our technology teams that we are collaborating with. I'm mentioning that because right now I'm in the middle of preparation to Kanban certification. I try to catch the essence of Kanban, and I catch it today, and it's actually the value to the customer or to the user is only a value when it's delivered, when it's ready, when it's done. Maybe we can come back to the challenges and the summary. No people pleasing, ability to say no, which is basically ability to prioritize things. And yeah, is there anything else, like any challenges in product management world that you didn't mention?
I would say, yeah. So prioritization, I think, is always the biggest one because I think capacity and competing needs are going to be present wherever you work. But then two other ones, and again, I think it will depend on what product looks like in your organization. But other ones for me that I've found working for global corporate are pace of delivery. So things don't move as fast as you'd probably like them to. There can be a lot of red tape, compliance, bureaucracy, etc., that you have to sort of work through. So you don't always get to be, truly iterative in what you have in mind. And the second one would be silos. So in an organization, sometimes you might have roles that overlap. You could be looking at the same problems, but going out, after them in different ways. There's not always clear communication lines between departments and functions looking at the same things.
Okay, to sum this up, it's the other two is pace of delivery. But what do you mean by pace of delivery? How fast things are delivered, and how much like executives want us to deliver faster? For example, deliver like
it's kind of twofold because I think from an executive standpoint, right? They want everything done faster, cheaper, whatever. I'm sort of less concerned around that because I feel like if executives want that, then they need to set up teams and technologies to be able to deliver that. I think my kind of angle on it is around trust. So to deliver fast, you need trust in that, the POC or the MVP, whatever you want to go to market with, and we know that it's not going to be fantastic, it's probably going to be nowhere near what you want your final vision to be, but it's something that you can get feedback on, right? It might be quite rudimentary, it might not even be functionally perfect, but it's something that you can start to get feedback on, you can iterate. And if you are in an organization where there is trust, I mean, maybe it's not even an organization thing, maybe it's it's an industry thing. As I said, in finance, it's very difficult because we are so highly regulated. So we tend to work in quite a signed off phased approach before anything gets to prod and in front of the clients. But for me, that would be my biggest one, is if you could deliver faster, if you could have true iterative development whereby you could put something half polished out and just get feedback, look at fake doors, try and do your A/B testing and other means of kind of qual research where you can. But I think, you're only truly going to be able to pivot quickly and learn if you can fail fast. And you can't do that if your organization doesn't support it. And even in my current one, I have plenty of examples where we've tried to do that, and then it's been sort of, stopped in the 11th hour because senior management have sort of panicked and gone, oh, no, can't do that. We're going to have to put some more, robustness to it. So that would be my angle on being able to deliver faster. I think it's about having the trust in knowing that it is a truly empowered, autonomous team with the trust and corporation approval of stakeholders, that they're okay with putting something out in the world that might fail. People might hate it, people might complain about it, but you've learned, and you've been able to pivot, to iterate, to can it, to do whatever. I don't think where I'm currently we do that very well.
To summarize it, you just said that basically the challenge is being afraid of failure, yeah? And that's what we should do as product managers, to fail fast, because that's when we learn, yeah? When we deliver something not perfect, yeah? It's like with my podcast sometimes, like I did in the past episodes that I felt like they are not the best quality, but I just done that because I committed to do something, regularly. And I just wanted
Your
to check
favorite phrase, done is better than perfect.
Yes. Yeah, my favorite phrase, but it started not a long time ago. I think it started this year, because in the past I was like more like everything needs to be perfect. Like everything needs to be polished. I will not make this or this before it will be like super, in details it will be like excellent. No, right now I have like done is better than perfect, because the more I'm doing imperfect things, the more I'm learning, not only about the user needs, but also about myself and how I deal with failure, with mistakes. Like this year 2023, probably I did like the biggest amount of mistakes and learnings. In work, in professional space, in private space, but the kind of way how I feel about this year, and how I feel after all these challenges and all these mistakes, failures, it's like nothing can stop you after you like, and you have like appetite for more, and your kind of flexibility, like emotion flexibility, life flexibility becomes like much bigger. And after like few failures, you just start thinking like, okay, come in, like challenge, welcome.
And you do, because you've now got a better repertoire behind you, right? Like you've learned from past mistakes. You have lived experience that you can now bring to whatever the next challenge is.
Yeah, exactly. But coming back to challenges in product management world, we said about people pleasing, prioritization, pace of delivery, being afraid of failure, communication. You mentioned communication also as a kind of challenge, to be like transparent amongst all people.
I wouldn't say communication is a challenge, but again, I suppose that's that's on what your skill set is, right? So for me, I'm quite often told that I'm highly communicative. I'm very organized. I'm very direct. People always know where they stand when they work with me. So I don't find communication a challenge, but I can imagine that if you struggle with bringing people together, or being able to share concise information, then yes, it could be.
Okay, so let's move to tools right now. Do you use like any specific methodologies or frameworks that you find like most useful in product management role? Do you have any favorites?
I am not on the bandwagon of what's the hottest, sexiest, most used framework. I think, again, you could probably, product has become almost this glorified, lucrative career, right? Particularly in the States, where, you can probably easy go and get a six-figure, $250,000 plus salary for taking a product position in certain organizations. So I do feel like it is quite glorified. It's quite hot at the moment to get into product, which is so interesting, considering that as we've kind of discussed over this last hour, there's no kind of direct skill set or career path, right, that people need to follow. It's kind of just all about how your different experiences have sort of led you to end up in this kind of more kind of user-centric space, helping to, shape visions and strategies of a particular area. So on that, no, because I think there's, a million people who are probably going to write blog posts around, to be successful, you need to know these 10 frameworks, or use this particular guideline, or follow this process, or, blah, blah, blah. Make it work for you. And I think that this comes down to your previous question around the kind of 3 key things. And it comes back to common sense. If you've got a way of working, whether it's a process, whether it's a template, whether it's a framework, as long as you can do that to prioritize, to communicate, to run discovery and ideation, to plan a sprint or a deliverable if you're not working in Agile, to, showcase iteratively, to do your competitor analysis, to combine your research, to do your gaps and opportunities work. All of this just comes down as common sense around, what are the key things that you want to bring together for product. And it comes back to, your primary role is to set that vision. And you can only do that by collating all of the information and analysis that you have, by bringing people together. So for me personally, I could care less what framework or process you want to do that with, as long as it gives you the output that you need. So as long as you're able to clearly explain to your stakeholder why you're prioritizing X over Z, or why this opportunity is the one that we want to run our user testing for, or do our discovery on, or why we're looking at this analysis report and not that one. So and I've seen this in organizations that I've worked with, where they've tried to kind of unify everything, because you get people in senior management kind of wanting something that's easy, right? Like, oh, but why can't all product teams just use X? Well, we could flip that and go, why don't you build a rapport with the product teams that you're working with, understand how they do something, and then they'll show you that. And again, I think it just comes back to common sense. As long as you can have that relationship, you can have that discussion, you come at it with, rationale, analysis, and clear reasons why. As I said, I don't personally have any particular frameworks that I follow.
And I love that approach. I'm going to say that I love that approach, but I think when you're a young or aspiring product manager, you actually think that the tools and the knowledge from the books and from certifications will make it for you, yeah. Instead of thinking about, I wouldn't call it like common sense. I would actually call it courage and self-awareness.
Interesting. And I think I can see where you're going with this. And if I reflect on my answer, you're probably correct, because common sense probably comes more naturally through tenure. So the longer you've been in product, the more you're going to just naturally have instinct about things that work or don't. So yes, if you are looking to move into product, or you are just coming out of school and thinking that it could be a cool career for you, then yes, there's no end to the books and blogs and podcasts and things that you can familiarize yourself with on what is product and how to do it. And you may find a few frameworks that you like. And I think that's a good starting point, because you could bring them to your first job, right? And it's going to be about what works for you, what works in that organization. I think it keeps coming back to product is so different at every company you're in, like what they see as product, what the responsibilities they attach to your role are. So, by all means, pick a book, a podcast, a blog, an article, like whoever you like to follow and learn from, whether it's a certification, whatever, pick something that you want to start with, and then make it malleable, right? Like shape it, test it, trial it, take it to your first job, take it to your first team. You may walk into the organization and they may tell you, we do things X, Y, Z. You may walk into the organization and they go, this is your team, run them however you want. And that's where you can kind of learn. You'll probably also learn, as I have, that different teams work in different ways. So frameworks and processes that I've used in one team will not work for the other team because they're different levels of maturity. They want different, accountability, responsibility, input, etc. So, again, I don't think it really matters where you get your starting point from. I think the point is the more you expose yourself to the different ways that people work, how other teams do it, cross organization, things like that, it's all just trial and error. Like there is no gold standard of, as a product manager, you must use XYZ framework because it's all on the output. As long as you're, running through kind of your core ceremonies, analysis, etc., your delivery, your roadmap building, your vision setting, etc., how you get to that, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's again about we are looking, I think, for recipe for success. Yeah, there's like 3 steps to become the perfect product managers, or 10 skills that we have to acknowledge, or tools, and we will be like perfect in that. And I love what you said, to like do it your way, which is actually the name of this podcast. And I totally agree, because if you will not find the tools that fit either organization or your kind of skill set or how you see things, like no one will define it for you. Yeah, okay, organizations are good at defining processes, but still you need to like tweak this process and adjust it to you. Like we are all like doing things in our own way, and I like really encourage all people to do that. Okay, let's keep the foundation principles, but then we can make magic. I mean, we can do whatever we want with that, as long as it works.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the unique things about a product career, is that it's not prescriptive. Like, it's not like you've gone through and trained as an engineer or a doctor or an architect, or, where there's a very, structured kind of, often university course, certain qualifications, certain skills you'll need. Product is so dynamic and versatile that it really is around your way of thinking, how you approach things.
Yeah, and if we think about doing it your way, and what you said before, like that it's not prescriptive, it's also, I think, a kind of difficult area for, aspiring or young professionals to actually like dive into, like right into product management. And usually I think people are going into product after some years of expertise in different fields, because do you think like do you find product management a difficult area?
Difficult. I would say it's demanding. There are certainly easier days than others. I wouldn't say it's difficult in the sense that I feel out of depth. It can sometimes be difficult in that you are just doing, so many things over the week. So for me, I don't have a set routine. So I don't, start my day a certain way, or, make sure certain tasks are done. Each day is so different depending on kind of what the needs are in the kind of product cycle that we're in at the moment. Everything from sort of the management side of it. So, I have direct reports. I have to help them set strategy. I have to help them with stakeholder management, right through to my individual contributor level, which is, my direct team. How am I, in the Jira board, unblocking them from certain things, refining requirements. So it can sometimes be difficult in that sense, because it's quite broad, the things that you can be looking at. And yeah, I mean, I would say it's kind of good challenging, because sometimes it can also be difficult when you have a frustrated stakeholder, or parties aren't aligned, or you have to pitch something. All of these are like little challenges, but it's all part of the job. So yeah, I would say I don't feel out of my depth, but I think because you're exposed to so many different things depending on the day of the week, with your stakeholders, with your team, little difficulties can arrive, but I think they're all just learning opportunities.
Oh my God, I love what you just said. Like, these are like not difficult, but these are like learning opportunities. And I'm trying also to see the word and all the experiences in that way, which is not always easy. But yeah, seeing other people as your teachers, and also like seeing all experiences as your teachers, like it just changes the perspective, and like makes you available to see opportunities rather than pass through it. Yeah.
Mhm.
There was like an experiment that I heard about. The kind of lesson from that was that people who had like a positive thinking about the task, they saw in the middle of the text a sentence: you can stop reading right now, your task is done. And the one with the negative approach to this thing, they completed the task perfectly, but unnecessarily. So they were just overdoing, just because they focused on a kind of like what stress and negative thinking is doing. I think it just closes the way you see like everything. You see that the challenges, it just makes you feel like, yeah, it makes you like laser focused on the unhappiness. And I think you find in the world what you want to see. And if it's the change that is positive, you will find it. But if it's the change that is negative, you'll also find it. It depends on the attitude. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but it does. Um, okay. So can all, like, to sum up, can all become product managers? Can all people become product managers?
Can anyone be a product manager? Look, I think so. I think it comes down to, again, it's just kind of, as long as I don't personally think there's, a huge amount, if any, hard skills that you really need to sell. It's all about your soft skills, right? It's all about your communication, your relationship building, your common sense. How do you prioritize something? How do you analyze something? How do you say yes to something over something else? So I think, yes, provided that you have, to your point, of a certain mentality, and if you've got a certain way of thinking, yes, I think anyone can. And I think, we see that more and more, even in my current organization. We see engineers moving into product, we see QAs moving into product. We've had business managers and commercial counterparts move into product, and they've all been sort of part of the product team in some way, sense, way, shape, or form. And it kind of gets them interested, and the more you work with them, the more exposed you are. And then I think it's always, so I think directly to those of you who are looking to get into products, yes, it can be hard, and we tend to go around the bush a little bit around to get a job you need experience, but how do you get experience without being offered something? It's always easier to move sideways in your own organization. So if you're in an organization at the moment and you're really interested in what your product counterparts are doing, chat to your product managers, go and sit in on meetings, go and introduce yourself to their team, understand what does their week look like? What are they working on? How do they decide what to work on? Who do they interact with? And you can probably learn a lot, regardless of whether your immediate role is sort of corresponding with product at the moment or not. If you're interested, just kind of tag along, be a bit of a shadow. And then, as I said, it's always easier if you've built rapport in an organization to move sideways and trial something than it is to try and get a product role externally. And again, like as I've said, it's not like there's a university degree or a certification that you must have on your resume to get into product. So quite often when you're trying to get in, again, it's easier to move internally, because if you're trying to get into a new company, quite often the only thing they ask for is the story on how you moved the needle, right? You basically have to have a pitch ready about how you changed the metrics, how you found the opportunity, how you unveiled value, the impact that had, how you move the needle on your key metrics. And that can be very difficult to do, especially if you're in a larger organization or even in a startup. Like on one hand, startups, you don't have a lot of data, right? Like you might be a skin and bones organization. You're not going to have really advanced, user journey attribution models and analytics available for you. But on the other hand, you work for a big corporate, your piece of the pie, it may never tie directly to a revenue metric or something. You might be engagement focused, which in itself is fine. But what I find is, when you interview for especially some of the more mature, larger product companies, they are only interested in that story of, how did you move the needle? What was the greatest piece of value impact that you added? And if you've not worked in product before, or you've not worked in an area that's been autonomous enough to have a really clear story, or, you just blatantly lie because it's an interview and you just need your foot in the door, it's easier to move sideways. So I think that would be my takeaway. Anyone can be a product manager, but if you want to try it out, do it in your own company first. It will be far easier to break into.
Totally agree, because I did that move in the past. Moved from the more project connected role to product, and I really encourage people to do the same if they have the opportunity, because sometimes there is like no product roles in the companies. We can experience that. Okay, Maggie. So we're like, we'll wrap up our conversation. Like, finally, we'll wrap up our conversation, because it took us almost 1.5 hours to record it, and our conversation is pretty long already, but very valuable. What is like the one key takeaway that you would like our listeners to remember about product management experience?
I think just bring yourself to work. That would be my biggest piece. And it comes back to, I think, what I've been saying the whole time, like who you are as a brand, how you communicate, how you interact, how you build connection, the way you approach things, you think about things. That is everything in product. And if that's something that you do naturally, like maybe you're in a role that exercises some of that already. Maybe you're not, but you do a lot of it in your personal life. I think just bringing yourself to work, the way you think about things, the way you approach things, that is key. Because again, as we've discussed, product is versatile. It's not prescriptive. So provided you have the opportunity to be given a chance to step into a role, to try it out, that can be really rewarding. And I think like biggest piece of advice is don't feel threatened by, I think the glamour that product is painted with, as we've talked about, like there's millions of blogs and articles and, courses, podcasts. Everyone will tell you, product management is this. To be successful, you need to do this. That's all just someone's opinion. It's their own experience. There is fundamentally no certification or degree that you need. You just need to bring yourself and the way that you approach things, the way that you think about things, and just be given a chance, So that would be my advice. Remain authentic to the way you would approach problems, and don't be intimidated by I think the glamour and sexiness that, a career in product management could bring, like as I mentioned earlier, all of these like, $250,000 salaries I'm sure you can get out of Silicon Valley, and about how, product is the center of the organization and everything. Like, yes, it can be glamorous, but at the end of the day, we're all just doing a job. We're all just trying to, aid our customers and put the next best thing of value out for them.
I love the message about being, oh God, I started to laugh a lot of what you just said. Okay, Maggie. Yeah, thank you for this. Thank you for this valuable advice. It's really, being authentic. That resonates with me. And the next thing is, what's the one thing you're most looking forward to achieving or experiencing in 2024?
Curveball question. The most thing that I am looking forward to. All right, let's go professionally first. So professionally, I am excited for my team because it's our we are coming into our third year of running now, and we are at the stage where we've done a lot of the foundational work, a lot of the core integrations. And so I think for us, 2024 should be a big unveiling year of, kind of 2.5 years ago when I worked with the designer, and we put together a bit of like a vision prototype, nothing to kind of build a spec from and move forward, but just something that we could take to the business around, this is what we could achieve. Coming into our third year as a team, I think this is the year that we can start to unveil that. We've got all the plumbing done, we've moved the key pieces, and now we can start building out truly this change in our trading platform that we really wanted to see. So that is exciting for me. Personally, usually
Coming to Krakow.
Big dreams. Yes. I mean, it's related. I was going to say personally, it's usually countries that I want to travel to. So this year on my bucket list is Iceland. I'd really like to get over there. But outside of travel, which is a key hobby of mine, for me, it's going to be getting back into hobbies and community. So there's a few pieces of interest that I am going to start sort of later this month, sort of teams and things, communities. So I think, just about setting more of that, as an expat, setting more of that foundation in my personal life.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention that you're an expat and moved to London a few years ago. That also I think would be like encouraging for people, but maybe we'll discuss it in a different episode. Who knows if you would like to.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm around and I ramble for 90 minutes. So, always up for a chat.
And for our listeners interested in connecting with you, where they can find you online, or maybe you can assist them or support them with something, you can mention that now.
Yeah, no problem. So online, best contact is Maggie Lighezzolo on LinkedIn. My name is in the headline down there. I was most impressed, Beata, when you pronounced my surname in one go in our intro. But yes, for any kind of professional connection or tips, advice, or just a chat, LinkedIn, you can find me there.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for our conversation. It was really amazing to speak with you. Thank you for being, my Red Bull.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It was enlightening, even to myself, sort of reflecting on my answers and some of the questions. It's quite interesting to reflect back on your career history and how and why you get into products. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and see you soon. And until that, I have to say that keep doing it your way. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Doing It My Way by Beata Matras. If you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to subscribe. Remember, this podcast is a dynamic journey and your feedback is very welcomed. Connect with me on social media. I would like to hear your thoughts, questions, and topic suggestions. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes. And until next time, keep doing it your way.